the cloud. Forgotten Sea Fighter practice. All right, with Xerxis.
All right, welcome everybody. Hopefully everybody can isolate just my video so they have a bigger version of what we're looking at, because right now I've got the full variety of everybody. But if you have any questions, let me know throughout. I will have certain segments throughout it where I'll pause for a few minutes and let questions be asked. So we started up a little early just to get the framing right. Hopefully this framing works. If there is at any point that you can't see what I'm talking about or discussing, feel free to speak up, unmute yourself, let me know, I can't see what you're doing, or it's too far, or can't really make it out. So don't hesitate for that. We're open for about an hour here. We'll have some time to talk about stuff at the end as well if you have any extra questions. The title of this training session, I taught once in Meridies when I was Prince last. So I flew out there, did a class there. So I tried to revamp it a little bit, make it a little bit more simple. There are some setbacks at doing it virtually as opposed to in person. A lot of times you can walk around in person and see different angles of stuff. So I'll try and address a lot of that as I'm going through. But this is about openings and visualization of a fight. So finding your openings on your opponent, taking advantage of them, creating openings, just the base way to look at how you fight somebody, how to learn from a fight in the middle of it, how to learn from it after, how to get creative in your free time to come up with new stuff to try out. So we'll go ahead and get started with just the basics. So we're going to be looking at our opponent and just kind of dissecting where they are. And I'll give you 3 different pretty common defenses that you see from fighters throughout most of the known world. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'll put Matsu in a pretty standard hanging guard. All right, so this is a defense that I started with for a lot of my beginning fighting, and I still utilize now, but I switch between different stuff. So the hanging guard usually has shield over the center, sword hanging over the top. And so what I want to bring up in the basics is when you first step on the field and you're dissecting how your opponent looks, you need to be able to look at quick openings. I'm going to tilt this camera so hopefully you can see a little bit more of Matsu. All right, and why don't you step forward just a little bit. So a lot of times when I come out here, I want to find out where's the quick kill, where's the leg shot, and if there's an arm shot type thing. So right off the bat, I first see this forearm, I see an inside thigh, maybe an outside thigh, and a really hard gap down the center for the head. So a lot of times I might think about coming all the way over the top, but the very basics of understanding openings on somebody is seeing them right when you step on the field, analyzing them, realizing that they're there, whether they're small or large. So no matter what I do, when I come out, I want to say, oh, okay, so he's got his blah, blah, blah. There's very prominent legs open at this point. I might get a chance at this arm. I might have to try pretty hard for a headshot. So that's a hanging guard. Next, I'll switch into an A-frame. All right, so he's got his shield off to one side, sword on the other. He's got his center pretty much covered up. So again, I've got an eye slot over here. These are very basic things where you just look at your opponent and you say, okay, what is potentially there that I could take advantage of? All right, we've also got a leg shot down below. So again, this is just walking through. First few seconds I step on the field and he takes his defense, I go, oh, okay, I have to think, where are my very beginning openings? So these are the things that I might want to attack that are always going to be there if he's in that defense. I might have to do a little swindling to get there, but very basic. Here he is, A-frame. I might have that. All right, so there's this leg shot open. I might be able to loop something into the forearm and maybe that flat snap to the eye slot. Another one that I see a lot in Palantir that I really wish I didn't is more of like a pendulum top defense. We see a lot of this with circle center grip shields. So a lot of times what they're doing is they're using their sword very heavy up top to block flat snaps and offsides by rotating their little pendulum, and their shield is taking care of a lot of their leg stuff. I don't like this because it takes away all your offense. That's a different discussion. But again, if he's hanging out in this pendulum, my first thing is, okay, his legs are pretty much taken care of. Some upper body shoulder shots that I might be able to take advantage of if I'm fast enough. and maybe a wrap to the headshot or a flat snap or onside or offside if I can take advantage of catching him off on a pendulum. So I'm going to start off with that just to show some very basic ideas of how to create an opening. So if somebody's got a pendulum style, a lot of times if you don't see something open, you want to create something that's open, especially with something like this, where if I throw a flat snap, he has to bite pretty hard just to pick up that headshot. So what opens up when I'm using my eyes, going from the basics of just what's open there, but just in throwing one shot, I've created all this opening over here on his offside. So this is some ideas that when you're in the middle of a fight, so we've progressed from the very beginning, looking at your opponent, figuring out what's going on, to throwing your very first shot. Okay, I've thrown a flat snap. He's bit pretty hard. You have to use your eyes in the middle of a fight. That's why you'll always hear people say, don't cover your eyes with your shield. Don't hide behind your shield because you can't see what's going on. It's because if I'm blocking my eyes when I throw the shot, I totally miss when he goes back to center. So I might throw the shot, he blocks it, and he comes right back to center, and all of a sudden I've lost whatever opening I've got. So make sure you're watching your fight no matter what. Sure, I've thrown that flat snap, he's got it picked up. I might not be fast enough to realize at that exact moment that I can come back with a flat snap to the other side. So let's say I throw it and I come back and I go, oh, okay, so that opened up. I'll throw it again, follow it up with an offside, and hope I'm faster than him. So the big part about this is no matter as you're progressing through a fight, you're going to start off looking at your opponent, seeing the very obvious openings, which can close at any point in time, but you do know they're there. So if you ever catch them not looking, or you catch them with something different, you might be able to take those very obvious ones. The next step is throwing a shot and watching, just watching. If I throw a shot and he blocks it, I got to figure out what just opened up. So let's take you back to a hanging guard, something a lot of people see a lot of times. Very popular all through the known world is a hanging guard because the defense is so good. So a lot of times, these can be a lot more difficult. You'll see people like Duke Ashir, myself, Matsu for a good part of it will hang out in this hanging guard a lot. Closes off that very easy bread and butter flat snap for most causes. So let's say I want to attack something different and maybe open that up. So the idea of what I am trying to teach is if it's a very closed down defense, there are ways to get in there. There are ways to get in there by setting them up. Now their setups that I'm going to teach right now are going to be using a separate shot to move things around and get you in position to take advantage of a second shot that's opened something up. I can teach another class at a different time based on where your feet are to open up other things, and we might be able to get into that towards the end of it. But for now, we're going to isolate more on just taking a shot, seeing what happens to their defense, and taking advantage of it from then on. So if he's got a hanging guard, and I really want that slot offside to the eye, he's got it pretty closed up. If I just threw it, he's going to bring his basket down, he's going to block it. So what do I got to do to open that up? A few ideas that I've come up with throughout, and a lot of people have come up with as I've been fighting is, well, how does a person think? If I throw a shot down below, he's going to want to drop his shield to pick it up. That opens that gap a little bit. All right, if I throw a shot to his onside, it might pin his sword down a little bit, opens it up a little bit, maybe even get an arm shot. If I throw a shot that might open his shield completely up, maybe I change from that eye slot into something offside. So as I fight, there are a lot of setups that I do that might not seem deadly at that time, but just the movement and the defense that that person takes creates a lot more opportunity for me. I would say I'm most notably known for my turnover, which involves hitting the inside of the shield and turning it over for a flat snap. The reason I do that, when I hit the inside of the shield, it flattens the shield a little bit, it drives it down, and all of this space is just opened up. So when you're thinking about these things and you're working on your PEL, you have to visualize what your opponent would be doing, and especially when you're fighting, play around with this stuff. Just throw a shot out, see how they react. A lot of times I'll be out there, I'll throw one of those, just to see how far he goes. I have not put myself in danger at all. I just want to know how he's going to react if I do that. Did I lose anything or gain anything over here? Did I gain something down below? Did I leave his arm out there to come up? Anything along those lines are going to benefit me. So there's a lot of creativity you can get into with just playing around with a setup shot. And eventually, as you get better and better at your setup shots, they'll become more deadly. So while I may stop folding that shield down, I might throw a straight leg. And if it hits, it hits, and I get a leg, that's great. But if on the rebound, it'll come right back up into that flat snap. So he still has to drop that shield and pick that shot up. I gain everything I just have, and I still get to follow it up with hopefully a kill shot. If not, I still gain that leg. All right, so in addition with the visualization, you want to think about what kind of shield they have and what kind of things you can get away with. So with a center grip shield, a lot of times it's isolated here in the center of the shield. So depending on where you hit this shield, it can rotate around their hand, it can pop down, it can pop up. Strapped heaters, you're not going to get as much play with that, so you have to get more aggressive with how you're going to open that up. For now, I'm going to deal with just the center grip shield. It's a lot more fun to use and to go against. So, especially when you're trying to open up stuff. So, a lot of times, like I said, that outside turnover, it'll roll out, plant that over there. Hopefully, I can pick that up. There's some other fun things you can do with the shield, and even on a strapped heater, pop from the bottom, pop from the top to take advantage of what happens. So, if I were to hit the top of a shield with whatever with whatever shot, I can hope that it pops up this bottom a little bit, and I can take advantage of a leg shot somewhere. So a lot of times I'll throw a flat snap to the top and race it down with a leg shot to the bottom, hopefully catching them before they can close that back up. Some other things you can play around with: outside tap, something offside, different things that make him take his defense and just react. So whatever side you're going to, pay attention if you're going to play with that shot to see if it moves them in a certain way that opens up different things. Again, it's very important to watch. You have to visualize. You have to pay attention to how he's reacting to what I'm doing. Now, a lot of times, he's not just going to be standing there. He's going to be attacking. So be patient with it. You know, throw your shot. If something happens, your life is more important than that shot. You don't have to continue through with it. Take a shot. If you throw some, bail out, block, and realize he may still have an offense to it. You might have to switch it up a little bit.
You show them how the heater reacts different.
Yeah, actually. So he had my oval there. He's going to switch over to corners. Now, if you have a heater shield, you have a lot more corners. You have a lot more blocking surface area, and he can take advantage of those and different maneuverability aspects.
Just as a side note, I have a trigger in my heater. Because I don't really like when people roll my shield.
Yep. And you have to pay attention to, again, that's the same thing with the strapped heater. It's going to move a lot less. Now, that doesn't mean you can't take advantage of it. The shield doesn't have to move. You can also do things called a freeze shot. So again, I'm just going to throw some shots and see how it reacts. It really doesn't fold up. Okay, I've learned that. Now, if I hit the bottom, that still pops down a little bit, maybe enough that I can race him back up top. If I pop him here, I can come up into that face. So in just hitting him once, I found a shot that I might be able to land. It might not happen the next shot. It could be 3 shots down the fight. But either way, I'm learning, I'm adapting, and I realize, oh, okay, I can't fold him. I probably can't get that turnover on him as easy as somebody that 2 shield does fold up very easily. But that's okay. I can take advantage of all kinds of stuff. And if I'm not confident I can move his shield, maybe I attack his sword arm or his sword itself. I've been able to throw shots over here, which again, he's reacted. He's gone for the block, still opens up all this stuff. So instead of hitting the shield on my turnover, maybe I decide I want that one. So I've gone up over top, moved his entire sword, because he seems to be able to block just a face turnover because he ain't falling for it. If he's not falling for him, make him fall for it. Throw something real low, come up top. Attack that offside, move that sword. It's all this kind of creativity stuff that you learn by fighting and by just getting really good on your Pell at doing the shots you need to do. So I do all kinds of combos, and if you've seen Jay's video he just put out, he's got the 1 through 6 Pell drill that you can run it yourself at home if you have a Pell. which will teach you how to take from one shot to another in a two-shot combo. So as long as you practice in your 1 to 6, you'll be able to throw all kinds of combos to all different places, and you can get really creative with moving your opponent around as much as you want. So I like going low, high a lot. Sometimes I'll throw high, low, all kinds of stuff.
I felt my nerve cluster just light on fire, sorry.
So, but again, the key to all of this is being able to pay attention while you're in the fight and after you throw a shot. You can't lose sight of your opponent. You have to be able to learn by what they're doing right there in the middle of it. All right, I'm gonna read my notes here so I don't forget anything. All right, so combos are not some secret combination of stuff that you can keep to yourself that only you know, and you can go out there and perform it. It always works. That's not how a combo works. They're very simple shots. You know, it's an offside and an onside. It's an onside and then a wrap. Very simple stuff that we all know. It's all about how you're taking advantage of it and where you're taking advantage of it. So I might throw a flat snap, and then I might just body it up with a wrap. Two very simple shots. One of the first 4 shots you're going to learn is a flat snap and a wrap. So if you can throw one and you can throw the next, get creative with how you throw it and where you throw it. It's all dependent on what they do and react. So if I throw this and he's very solid, he keeps it right there. All right, cool. So if I throw that, take a step, and I throw a wrap, if it looks exactly like a flat snap coming in, is he going to change anything he's going to do? We're going to find out. I'm going to throw it and see if he does. It might work, it might not. And if it does work, you've got another thing in your repertoire. All right. And again, with the high-low stuff, you can throw a flat snap to a wrap, not change a single thing you just did, except for going high and racing them down low. And they're going to think it's a flat snap, come in as a wrap, changes the whole game. So it's not a secret. They're very simple stuff. It's about using your eyes, looking at what opens up when you throw one shot, and see if you can pull off the second and right after it if you want to throw it in later in the fight. I got a lot of shots. There's a lot of people that'll go out and be like, oh, I've got the best combo in the world. They end up throwing 86 shots and all of them get blocked because they just went in with a fury and nothing happens. It's not a lot of shots equals luck, but you can get away with 2 shots and pull it off skillfully. So the difference is knowing where I'm throwing and why I'm throwing them. So all we've been talking about is throwing a shot, finding out what opens up. If I throw this and he's super stoic, then what's going to change if I drop one into his leg right after? Not a whole lot. It's all about perception and what he's doing against you. All right. All right. So something I did when I first started fighting is my parents had a giant mirror in our living room. I would take my sword and shield and I would look at it and I would do the different stuff and I would pay attention to what is actually open on me. So you can't throw a combo if you just get smoked in the head every single time. So it's very important that use your shield while you're doing your pel work. Pay attention to where your body is. Make sure you don't end up swinging on your pel outside with no defense, because that's only going to translate to a fight. So if I'm looking in the mirror and I'm going through my progressions and I'm throwing combos that I think make sense, I need to pay attention to, does my shield drop in the middle of this? Do I put my foot out too far when I'm trying to do something? You got to be as much cognizant about what they're doing as you are yourself, and train yourself outside of the fight so you don't walk into it and get yourself all opened up while you're trying to do fancy stuff you learn from a dude from nowhere. So pay attention to what you're doing. Practice with your shield. Take video of yourself and fight as much as you can. Pain is the best teacher. So if you get out there and you're trying some combos in a practice and you keep getting tagged in your leg, you got to pay attention to what are you doing with your leg that's getting you hit there. And pay attention. So if I throw one shot and all of a sudden I want to go for this thing and he keeps hitting me in the armpit, that's something you got to pay attention to. You got to learn from that. No, you're good. So it's just as important to figure out what your opponent's going to do, to visualize what you are doing yourself in the middle of these combos. All right. So I would love to I'll probably just show you some of my favorite combos next that you can play around with. A very good point to make is if you're practicing on your Pel, feel the vibration or the reverb, as I usually call it, of when your sword hits the object that you want to hit, and taking that momentum and turning it into the next shot. There are so many people that get stuck up with throwing a shot and being like, okay, my combo, and trying to do something different, but they end up not having no power in it because one of two things happens. They throw the shot and then they want to throw it way out there again. And so they just end up with no momentum and it's all wrist action trying to throw something different. Or they get into it and they take too long getting reset, and then all of a sudden your opponent has closed back up to where he was and you can't take advantage of what you were trying to do. So it's very important that when you're throwing your shots, that you're able to recapture whatever you're doing and move it into the next shot. You don't want to get caught out here trying to do it. There is some comeback to it, and there's this feeling of your sword returning its power that you had in that initial shot back into your hand to turn it over, come somewhat back to base is what I call it. Whereas where you throw most of your shots is this is home, this is base. So you can throw a shot, come somewhat back, generate your power again into something different. And a lot of that can happen with just taking steps. You know, my turnover is usually a step-based thing where I can bring my sword back to me in the middle of it. So your footwork has to work with your combo as well. You can't just expect throwing out here to generate any power for you. So when you're doing your Pel work and you're practicing your 1 through 6 drill, or you're doing your different combos that you're trying to get creative with, make sure you're moving around and still finding power and you're not flailing out at the end of your sword. You'll end up just getting out there. You'll get a bunch of no's coming to you, a bunch of lights, because you're not hitting them with anything other than something that you think looks pretty. So it takes a lot of practice to get to the point where you can throw 2 shots in a row anywhere you want and take advantage of what you're seeing. So prepare yourself, make sure your mechanics are matching what you want to do, or else it's for nothing. I would love to say a good thing to do right now is to just get out and fight and learn and play around with the ideas of what I'm doing. But I do know that with the coronavirus out there right now, a lot of us don't have that ability. So again, if you have your Pel, get out there and do it. I'm gonna go ahead and take about 10 minutes where you guys can ask me a few questions, and maybe I can dive deeper into what I'm talking about. I don't want to feel like I've missed out on anything. So if you do have a question, I'm not sure if there's a raising your hand function or you can unmute yourself and talk to me or what, but I'll go ahead.
You can ask questions over chat, or you can raise your hand using the icon under reactions at the bottom of the screen. Maybe it's not reactions, but anyway, go ahead.
All right, so we got Ariel.
Hey, Xerxis, will you show us that step-in shot slowly, that combo where you step in and bring the sword to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do it slowly, please. Thank you.
So I was throwing that as my base turnover that I fall on a lot in a lot of places. And maybe we can, I don't know if we can point this down a little bit so maybe you can see my feet a little bit more. Let me know if this doesn't work. Let me go back a little bit, yeah. All right, so usually with the turnover, I start with an offside because I want to close something up over here to open up the headshot. So I'll throw it at his basket hilt since that seems to be what wants to open that space up. So when I throw it, oh, I got to think about it. It's been a while.
Sorry, I had to
I had to think about it. It's been a while. Step on. So you throw the beginning shot, and in the middle, you already have if you're in a base stance, you can take a half step, which is usually how I gain most of my area, just a half step in coming back off the reverb to turn in your next shot. So what you're doing is you're closing your body slightly more towards your enemy to catch up and make.
Can you show it again with the camera pointed up? You've cut yourself off.
Yeah. See if that helps. All right.
Yeah, that's better.
So it's just a small half step, which is bringing me half the distance to my opponent and making the distance that I have to bring my sword back to me to get back to that home base even shorter. So if I throw All right. So I take just a half step to close that distance in the middle of taking the momentum back of my sword, which allows me to step in, coming back to home, and then extend out for that flat snap. So, all right. So instead of being all the way up here and trying to do it here, I've moved my body closer to my basket hilt, which allows me to reset my arm from being way out here to here and turn it over again. All right. So I'm now connected, or I'm more of a punch again instead.
If you put your shield on, they can actually see it.
Oh, there we go. I just felt weird. All right. So being able to move my arm closer to me allows me to then punch again with that flat snap. So I've taken the reverb. I've been able to move my body and make it quicker to the transition back home to then extend out for the flat snap. Did that help? It's kind of hard to explain. Oh, I got a thumbs up from Donna. We're good.
So the thing that he's doing, he's actually, it's a stupid drill. If you stand with your sword out, like you finished a shot, and then lean into it, you'll see that your body's going to actually catch up with your shoulder and get you back in the position for your next shot.
Yeah, and what he's saying there is because you've already thrown your offside, being able to take that half step brings you back into a form that you can turn over into another shot. If you just stay back and try and throw it, it's all going to be with wrist. But being able to throw that shot and move your body a half step in, you now have the momentum coming back to you to reset the shot, as well as your body is prepped for that next shot to come onto the offside.
So you stick your hand out, like touch my nose. Right, so he's throwing his first one, now throw your turnover. So if his hand stays there and then throw your turnover, he's literally not losing any space. He's just he's shortening his arm again.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna grab a little bit of water real quick.
Yep. Question in the chat from Logan. Xerxis, do you typically fight sword foot forward?
That's a great question. So I am a firm believer that if you want to adapt to any fight, you have to be able to fight in any stance. So I usually am sword foot forward, but if I ever needed to, I would switch it up. And because throughout a fight, you're going to be moving around quite a bit, you will most likely catch yourself with your shields foot forward as well. So for most stances, yes, I will start a fight sword foot forward. I like to keep my shield covering that, so it's pretty centered up, but the bottom covers my leg, and I can take advantage of that leap step where I could take a half step with my sword foot first. But for training purposes, I would always say you should be able to fight with both. All right, get comfortable with no matter what leg is first or forward. You can attack from there. You can do your same combos. You can do all your different stuff. But yes, for the most part, I would say I start a fight sword foot forward. If they're left-handed though, that might change. Especially if, let's say, I'm fighting Donegal or Martis, I'm definitely not having my sword foot leg forward. My sword foot leg forward, whatever. Yeah. So I'll cheat it back. That way, when I'm backing out, I have an extra foot where I can take advantage of blocking that and still come back and attack off that. And I'm set back with my sword foot forward after I have to take a defensive step back if I needed to. But be fluid with your feet. If your feet can move in any direction, you're safe. You can adapt to whatever they are. Because if you say, "Oh, I'm always a sword foot forward kind of guy," you're going to get stuck there. You're going to get stuck in this position where you're here. It also depends on what my stance is. If I'm doing my hanging guard, absolutely. My sword foot is forward. Unless it's a left-handed guy, I'll switch it up. If I'm A-frame, sword foot is almost always forward because I want to get that block here. I don't want them to take advantage of moving my shield around and catching this back leg. Again, those are things you pick up by just looking at video of yourself, you in a mirror, you in a fight, finding out what gets tagged the most kind of thing. So yes, for the most part, sword foot is forward for me. I can switch it up if I need to, depending on the fighter. And yeah, just trying to stay fluid depending on the situation. So. Any other questions?
You've got a couple in the chat. Do you have it open?
Yeah, let me see if I can open that up.
Okay, question 1 in the chat. Do you ever change elevation angle when attempting your second intended attack, or do you
Yeah.
prefer to address head and force your opponent to regain force?
Yeah,
to
so
hit with
that's
the-
probably a question about jumping. So I take advantage of my jump wrap because most people don't expect it. It allows me to gain a lot of, well, unless you've seen it a whole lot and then you can expect it. But especially in other kingdoms and stuff, if I'm able to close the distance enough and I can get shield to shield, chances are my wrap shot's getting around whatever you got. It's very hard for somebody to throw a dump block and pick up a back wrap. But for a lot of times, yes, I turn over, I throw a small elevation. I'm a little shorter as a person. I'm only 5'9.5", 5'10", says one nurse I've met in my life. But I will throw a shot to try and raise up and get to that nicer angle. So if Matsu has his sword and shield, Matsu's six even. All right. So for me, a lot of my force in generating, coming, and starting new shots has to come from my legs. Not the biggest guy in the world. So if I really want to get some speed and stuff, I need to pump into it. Sorry about that. So especially if he's got a hand guard and I need to get up above the top of his shield, then the drop shot is very effective for getting behind his shield edge and getting a really nice flat snap. So if they are slightly taller than me, I will elevate a little bit on my toes, sometimes come off the ground, but not a lot anymore. But yes, coming up a little bit changes the angle of where it comes in. It's also something that allows me to get a little bit more force by driving into the shot. It helps me with a little bit of speed and resetting back at home. It's not something that I've trained. It's always just been a natural thing for me to want to throw my body into the shot. A lot of times people will say both feet planted allows you to drive from the ground into something. That is very true. I've gotten a lot better at throwing a lot of my shots with both feet planted, but most of you know that is still not very much. So, but yes, changing the angle of where you are when you throw a shot changes how a shot is completely. So that's a whole nother realm that you can get into when throwing in combos and how you want to generate and where you want to get to. So if we have somebody with a really good defense and they've got everything locked up and I'm throwing stuff and they're just blocking everything I can get, then sometimes you just need to lower or get higher and just change where you're coming at with your sword. If it all comes from the same place and they're used to that, then they're going to be able to block most of it. So let's say they're blocking everything, I can't get anything, it's all not working, and I want to get low on them, or I want to throw something real low and come up high. Something that really changes where they're looking. If they can just stand here and do this all day, then it's not really effective for me. I'm not getting anywhere. But now if they have to go real low to pick up that very edge, edge of the target area, block, and then have to come real high to block something, or taking them off one side real hard and come all the way around. That's the stuff that it's very extreme to go from one side to the other, but being able to take advantage of somebody with your footwork and going high and low, changing the altitudes of where you throw something can really be effective with creating combo. And if we ever got into a more advanced class, then absolutely being able to throw something that has a different angle of where it's coming in is going to be able to open up way more doors once you've kind of mastered your combos and how you're getting them from there.
Next question from the chat. Whether it's a change in height or angle or head on, how do you cover yourself for the second intention and cover for a potential attack after your 1-2 combo?
Yeah. So again, being very cognizant of where you are when you're throwing your combos is going to be able to save your ass a lot. So a lot of times, when you throw something, you have to realize what you're giving up to get there. So if I throw my flat snap, I may realize my head's very open. So you have to, that's why never block your face when you're doing something, or block your eyes, I should say. You can look right over it, but when you're coming in for something, if you don't even see it's coming because your eyes are blocked and you back out, you're taking a flat snap to the face. So when you're practicing your combos, make sure your eyes are always visible and you're ready for whenever somebody backs out, so you can either come back home safely, or you gotta be able to duck under and still be able to see your opponent to find out what's coming next. So when I back out, I usually try and take an edge pretty hard. And by that, I mean, I'll throw something and I'll back out away as best I can. I don't have a whole lot of space, but a lot of times it looks like I'm running away, which is pretty true. If I get locked up in the center somewhere and I really got to get out, sometimes throwing something defensively to get out and regain your space, keep them on edge. A lot of times, if you throw a shot, they want to block it. It's very hard if I throw a shot and they throw a shot at the same time, because now we're both wondering what's going on. And then it's a whole free game of who's going to take charge. So sometimes the best defense is an offense. If I get caught in a combo and I'm like, yeah, but I don't have a way out, maybe just throw one disengaging shot, block them up a little bit, and take advantage of that. There's a lot of different things you can do to get out, but for the most part, as long as you're keeping your eyes on your opponent and you're watching what they're doing, you should be pretty prepared. You just got to be faster than them with getting underneath whatever you need to. Hopefully that helps a little bit.
Think about the primary you're coming off of anything close out.
What do you mean?
So if every time Xerxis throws that at me, for example, right? I know this one's coming, I know that one's coming. From this position, my natural response is always going to be to throw back flat snap. Just every fighter is going to have a tendency. So if you take away their primary, that's the thing. It's just trained in. It just happens. Like I know that 9 times out of 10, from here after that shot, I'm not hitting with this shot. But I've had that so trained. That's literally the only thing he has to block. You know, every now and then it may look like I'm throwing that and I'll throw the leg.
What he could do though, his game from this class is if I throw that and he throws that flat snap back, he could take advantage, go offside, and just mash away. If he was using his eyes and he took what he learned, he'd be able to turn a combo out of blocking his combo. But in points to your question, keep your eyes on it, watch what they're doing, and you'll have to train it in yourself to be able to get back to where you need to be to block things. Very creative point of view when you're frightened and you're not at home base and you're out and you've just thrown shots. It takes a lot to be able to go, okay, cool, I've got this and I've got to get away, I've got to get my space back. Now, I'm a very firm believer of having your space and fighting the game that you want to fight. So if you're comfortable staying in there, you can stay in there and make sure you've blocked everything. But for the most part, when I'm getting in there, I throw my shots, and I usually take the momentum of whatever shot that I'm finishing with and carrying it out either to a side or after I'm done, bailing back, because I want that space again to set up another combination.
So we got 2 questions in the chat relating to footwork. The first is, I know we have a 6-point drill for sword work on the Pell. Is there a footwork exercise that can be done with the Pell?
Absolutely.
And the second part of that, the second question is, what do you recommend for working on footwork while throwing combos?
So Pell work is, for me, has never been about hitting really hard, because if you try and just get in there and you're mashing at your Pell, you're not really training your muscles correctly. You get to the point where you're just using strength muscles as opposed to finesse muscles, I would say, like those support muscles. So footwork needs to help you generate power without throwing hard, if that makes sense. So usually taking a step into a shot or taking a step into one shot, and then on your combo, you take it to the next shot. So usually the more complex footwork you're going to work on is like shots to the same side and still having the hips generate out with each step that you take. I've never formally done a footwork workout for Pell. I had most of my footwork come from wrestling. So a lot of it was staying square, keeping your weight over your center of gravity in the middle of your feet, never being so far out that you're on one side or the next.
While you're talking footwork, if you'd back up towards the door a little bit, everybody can see you.
Does that help?
That's great.
All right, cool. Thank you. All right, so a lot of times I don't want my feet too much outside my shoulders. I want my center of gravity between my feet at all times, which means when I'm doing footwork or I'm talking about footwork, a lot of my stuff involves that half step that I mentioned earlier. So if I want to gain a lot of space, there's going to be a half step in there somewhere that gets me there. So what I just did there was a normal step, a half step to load, and then another step to bring my whole body there. So a lot of times if I'm throwing combinations, I want to step to my shots. And if it's something like a deeper wrap, then it's going to be a step for the first shot into a half step, normal step for the wrap. So when you're working on your Pell and you're doing your different shots, make sure you can step into them as well as turn something around from one step, from one shot, and use your hips to cock back, because sometimes when you're throwing combos, it doesn't involve a full step. You want to just be able to take something and turn it in from the hips from the other side. But again, a lot of my stuff came from wrestling, so I don't really have a formalized foot drill that I've ever done. And if somebody does have one, then they should definitely teach it.
Matsu, what's the hourglass drill you referenced in the chat?
What's that?
What's the hourglass drill that you referenced in the chat?
So it looks like I referenced it, but I didn't. That was actually Adelaide that brought that up.
What's the hourglass drill? You don't know?
My footwork on the Pell is weird.
Okay.
I don't have a link, but the guy from Awertha is the one that I watched do the hourglass drill. And he uses the like martial arts hourglass. It's basically you create an hourglass on the floor that's two of your steps towards your opponent. And there's the cross section in it is where you make your transition from left to right. Yeah, if somebody could look it up, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
No, my feet for Pell are. I've been walking like pretty much my whole life. So it's, but I'm a 3 power positioning guy. Sorry. So sort of like forward, shield leg forward, or square. So every step that I take on my Pell, I'm trying to put myself in one of those positions. Just like Xerxis was saying, so that if I've thrown my flat snap and I've transitioned into a different stance, where can I go from here to still generate power? Sometimes that's squaring up, sometimes that's taking a full step. That's,
Yeah.
My stuff's weird.
No, that's pretty basic. I'm
literally trying to stay in one of those 3 positions.
Yeah. I'd say the most important thing about footwork is just making sure your center of gravity is over your feet more than anything, because you will not be able to generate any power if you're out of front too much, behind too much. So being able to when you're in your Pell and you're training yourself to throw your shots, making sure your center of gravity is over top of both of it, and no matter what step you take, you're maintaining that center of gravity. And I don't know if the question was more about do you take steps, but you should absolutely take steps to all kinds of sides when you're throwing your combos. My one combo is not just left to right. It could be all the way left, or it could be all the way right. Be creative with a back step or coming forward. Play around with where you are and what scenarios you can do it, so that no matter whatever's happening between you and your opponent, you have something in your arsenal to throw that combo with. All right. hopefully that helps. I know I'm not the best at talking about footwork, so that's kind of what I've got.
Let's see you guys do figure out how far their feet are supposed to be apart.
One more question in the
take
chat
like a
here.
resistance band or a rope, so your feet can't get past that.
Hmm.
So if you try and go past it, you fall on your face and it hurts.
Yeah. I'll at least train your body if you're not used to something like that. Yeah.
One more question in the chat there. Do you step in sword point forward and see how they address the threat? Or do you step in guarded and react accordingly? Any value to point forward? Does power diminish with the follow-up attack after they address it?
Both are great. So sometimes you want to start, if I'm listening to that correctly, is starting in with a shot or addressing your opponent very defensively and see what they do. So a combo or an opening can be created. I guess I should have addressed this in the lesson as well. So this is a great question. An opening can be created not only by you, but by them. So by paying attention to what they do, like let's say if they throw a flat snap and they leave something open, then being defensive and paying attention to, okay, I blocked that. Oh, this happened. There's a lot of times in my fights that if I watch somebody throw a different shot, let's say they throw a Molinet to the outside and they just leave themselves here, as long as you can pick up that block, you go boom, you can follow it up with a flat snap. So it's not an always thing. You can always set up, get ready, wait for them to do something and react, or learn from what they're doing, or you can say, all right, I'm going to throw something and I'm going to see how they're going to react. Both sides of that coin are there and available. You just have to have the reaction time to realize, oh, they did that when they threw that shot and I was able to block it. I'll do the exact same thing next time and block it and throw something that's something I know opened up. They throw that Molinet way out here, then I'm going to block it, throw something in return.
So not Matsu asks in the chat, do you find that your strikes and your feet make contact at the same time? Is that how you generate power? Or are your steps mostly to get your sword arm back to 90 degrees?
Yeah, so when I'm attacking or when I throw shots, I don't think I've ever thrown a shot where my foot and the shot lands at the same time. If I'm throwing something, I'm driving that power from my feet into my hips, into my shoulder, into my arm. So if you are throwing a shot and landing at the same time, whatever it happens to be with your step, I feel like you haven't generated the power you needed to get there in the first place. So if I pump into it and I'm driving off the ground, so I've taken my step and I've come into a squat, then I can drive out of my squat into a flat snap to generate that power. So I would say more of the second half where I'm taking my step to get my arm and my body set to fire away. So if I'm throwing my turnover, I take my step. If the first one, is whatever, I throw that out there, but that step is there so that I can come into it and pounce into the next shot. Now it's more exaggerated, but for the most part, I'm driving off of whatever foot is still grounded. So if I'm throwing my turnover, I'm powering off of the ground back here. And it's not so much about what's hitting up here, because all my force is driving off my back foot to really get that in there. Yeah. All right, so let's see. Donegal has shared a video. Donegal, was that the footwork drill?
It is.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, sir. Any other questions at this time?
Hey, Xerxis, what about generating power as you're moving backwards?
All right, so that is when you are moving backwards, you sometimes don't have the ability to plant, to throw strongly. So that is a good point of how do I throw a good shot while backing out of something? A lot of times it's going to come from just your hips. If your feet are moving correctly and you're moving, it's going to be something that maybe you can plant going off in one direction and really get something on a back foot as you're going that you can fire away, but your force is not going to be anywhere near pushing into somebody as it is moving back. So that is true. If your opponent is chasing you, you will get a little bit off of them moving into your sword. But for the most part, if you are literally running out the back and you're throwing something, you're probably not going to have near as much force as you were unless you plant and you drive in. So if I'm bailing out and I'm like, nope, I got to get this flat snap now, I got to commit and push back into it. So you got to pick a foot, drop it down, plant to the ground, make sure that you've got where you can push off of it with it, and then you push right back into them. But for the most part, if you're just running backwards, you're going to be throwing slop.
Other questions from the group?
I appreciate you guys doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope it wasn't weird or just kind of, confusing, because I know it's pretty hard to kind of teach without being in person usually, but see if we can put a few of these together and really get better at teaching in general. So what do you think translated from wrestling the best, most effectively? I would say for me, it was getting in quick. A lot of our wrestling shots involve closing distance between you and your opponent a lot quicker than most other sports. Maybe football might be different as well, but being able to take steps to close distance effectively and more powerfully allows you to get where you need to be, still have power to pull something off, and get out if you need to. So for me, Matsu might be different. He also wrestled all through high school. But for me, being able to travel really quickly, still have my center of balance underneath me in order to do whatever I needed to, if I needed to power through an opponent or take advantage of a rotation offside, whatever it has to be. Now, when I first started fighting, I was very crab-legged when I was fighting because I really wanted to be able to get side to side and really move quickly. But throughout fighting, I've been able to take my feet, move them in a little bit more pointed, more direct. And so it's probably pretty comparable between if I'm in a wrestling stance to me being up and fighting. So my foot moved back a little bit because I'm no longer, my chest isn't over top of my front knee as I would be in wrestling. But instead, as I bring my chest up and straight, my front foot has moved back a little bit so that I keep my center of balance over top of me. But I still gain the same foot maneuverability of being able to switch feet, take these half steps here and there to gain a lot of space wherever I need to. So I guess the most important thing I got from wrestling would be where your center of gravity is with your feet and how quickly you can change those directions and gain space with your footwork and keeping your center of balance. I don't know if you have anything, but.
Hey, Grace, do you mind if I make an observation tied to that?
Yeah, I'm gonna grab some water, but I'm listening.
So he has been demonstrating this throughout the entire thing. I just want to emphasize the point that he's been teaching. It is very important to take lots of small steps, not one big step.
Yeah. So I've been trying, that's where that half step I'm trying to explain. So again, I've shown it to a lot of people. I don't know if I've ever put it together, but if you ever take a big step, all of your weight is over 1 foot. Matsu, come push me. Doesn't matter. Yeah, I can't correct without stumbling. Now, if I instead of taking this big step, if I take a half step to a step, now I've still got it and I can move around if I need to. But if I get out to here, I'm going nowhere. The only stability I have is over 1 foot. So as long as I can keep a little half step, I can move my whole body with my center of gravity over both of them as opposed to just one. So being able to take this little half step to gain that same motion, I'm still here. So.
Okay. Question about visualization. When practicing for perfect, when you throw a shot, do you imagine punching across or pass cutting through the target?
All right. So I like to show something. If you've ever taken calculus, I don't remember if this is the right term or not, but this is where I got it from. A lot of people like to think of a sword in a very two-dimensional fashion. It goes this way or it goes that way. That's not true. So a sword, when you're throwing a shot, has what I like to call the theta of it. It's the rotation around the basket hill. All right. So if he grabs his sword and shield, all right. If I throw a shot and he's got this locked, yeah, sure. My flat sword isn't going to get in there. But with my rotation of my sword in the theta, I can put my sword right in there if I need to. So don't think about it as a cut or as a what was the other one? Or punching across or anything. I think of it as a shot that rotates into a slot. So you don't have to think of it as 36 inches long that you have to fit in somewhere. You only got to fit in about a quarter-sized dot wherever you want to go. So if you start visualizing your sword as only ever needing to hit in the first 2 inches or so to get a good shot, you can rotate things in. You can rotate things in just based on where you're breaking your wrist to get that in there. So as long as you're generating the power.
I wonder if they're asking about where your shot is.
I'm not sure. Are you asking about where the shot is ending, or maybe I should?
Power generation? Is that what they're talking about?
When you visualize, when practicing for perfect, when you throw a shot, do you imagine punching across, past, or cutting through the target? So I guess to try and narrow down on that question, I always want to aim past 2 inches for power. So wherever they are, I want to not aim at where they are right now. I want to, when I hit, I want to be trying to get through them, if that helps. So that way, I'm not going for I just want to touch the edge of his shield. That's not going to do anything. I want to go 2 inches past, really make contact, hold it up, and do some damage. You're not going to get power if you don't go through the target. So I wouldn't really say it's a punch. I don't really throw a shot like this. I throw a shot that comes out with wrist action and rotation. So it's not really a punch. I lost it, but I lost it.
So if his head was a pumpkin,
Yeah.
cutting through it.
Yeah. So again, about 2 inches past your target is what I would aim for when it comes to force. If you put too much more, if you say, oh yeah, you got to punch, you got to hit about a foot past their head, you're going to try and put way too much into it. You won't be able to get out of that shot. You'll find yourself trapped a lot in things like this where I've overcommitted myself and I can't come back to anything without them hitting. So a lot of times you want to get just enough 2 inches past so that I can take that. If it doesn't work, and I can turn it into something else. So, all right, I hope that helped. It's kind of hard to completely understand questions sometimes when they're in writing, so I apologize.
When do you speed up your throw?
When do I speed up my throw? I guess, what do you mean by that? Because for the most part, it's not like I change speed when I'm like, oh, okay, now go fast. For the most part, it's throw at where I'm at and throw it, depending on what I need to hit, depends on the speed and depending on what I want to pull off. So there are shots that I want to throw slow because I want them to pick it up, and then I can take advantage of whatever my opening is, or it could be 2 shots that are equally as fast that have to get there and get wherever I need. But I'm not sure if I understand that question completely.
The person that asked the question, do you want to elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, it was. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Court's talking.
So for
on
power
this.
generation, like, are you, or even for feints? So the exact opposite of power generation, but
Yep.
you know, you're trying to pump a feint or whatever. Do you, when you pump a feint, do you pump it fast in the beginning to get that reaction and then power through with that, you know, that 2-inch punch basically, or do you slow it out for intention, wait for them to commit, and then speed it through on another angle?
So something I've learned, I've fought a lot of people all over the known world. It all depends. There are some people that won't bite because they just don't see it. If you pump too fast, there are some people you really got to go, oh, look at what I got, and then throw. There are some people that you have to throw real fast to make them respect it. You know, otherwise, you know, there's really good guys out there that if I just hone one in at one point, it's like, cool, they'll smoke me. So it's like, yeah, cool, this one has to be fast. That just takes understanding and, again, playing with what your opponent has. And that's why when I first touched in on, you know, throw a shot and see what happens, you know, take advantage of what they react like. Because if you throw something, they come in real quick and you've got your eyes on it, so you were able to pick it up. If you go, wow, okay, that's not going to work unless I do this fast. It all depends on what the other person is. There's been people, some newer fighters at sometimes where I just pump, you know, real fast to see what happens, and they just go, okay. Like they just don't pick it up. Maybe they've got glasses and they just don't see it. You know, nothing against people like that. It just depends on the fighter, I would say. So it takes, yeah. And sometimes you might pump real fast and they don't see it. So maybe the next time you go like this, and then they go, oh, wow, holy shit. And then you can take advantage of that. So it really depends on how you're fighting, who you're fighting, and being able to do it at any speed is really going to open up your ability to do it on anybody. So there's no one solution there. Be able to do it all.
Next question from the chat. Why do you hate the one stance with a pendulum block?
All right. So the reason I hope you want to put your helmet on.
Fine.
All right. The reason I don't like this.
Can I have your shield?
Yeah.
Swear to God, you hit me in my collarbone, dude. I'm just gonna react and I'm gonna hit you in the tank.
All right. So there's quite a few reasons why I don't prefer this one. I wouldn't say hate because when I get to fight them, I get excited. But all right. So when somebody does the top block sword only,
Where's the thing?
it's over. Okay, so I won't hit it. The reason I don't like this, and I prefer people never do it, is you are one taking your offensive weapon and turning it almost into a completely defensive weapon as long as I'm throwing shots. All right. So I just sat here and I'm going to throw shots at him. He's got to use it to block everything I'm doing. So he has no reaction back to it unless he can parry, block, and go, which at the same time, I can sit back here and throw these all day, and the minute he throws something, I just take a step backward. Good. The minute he takes a step in and he closes distance, I'm even happier. Because all I got to do is throw a quick one of these from the block and follow it in up on the other side. One of my favorite things to do on this is my turnover, is because I'm going to attack this side, they got to pick it up, and I'm just going to throw my flats down. So, right? They have to sell to one side or the other. Yeah, so Matsu wants to see if he can pick this up in this style. Ready? Yep. Oh, he ducked it.
That's the other way.
Yeah. So he has to commit one side or the next in order to pick up a shot. At the same time, he doesn't have the option to come out of it with a shot. So he's taken everything he's got for offense and turned it into a defense until he commits to attacking me.
I might as well fight him like this.
Yeah. And at that point, I don't really care about that. I'm going to just throw up top until I can get something. I'm just going to make him bite real hard over on one side or the other and turn it into the next. So, yeah, that's the only reason I don't like that. It just never made sense to me to take your offensive weapon, turn it completely defensive, and hope that you're really good at going left and right and making sure you know which way I'm going to match it up and block them all. And the minute I throw a jump wrap, where's he gonna go? Because if I'm here and I go,
Yeah, that's not even an issue.
yeah. So I'm gonna fake him out one side, step in, throw that wrap shot. His shield's already down here, so there's nothing picking up the edge. He might be able to dump block here, coming from here to here, but for the most part, not many people can pick that shot up.
There was flat.
Yeah.
I couldn't even get there.
Yeah. So that's why I don't prefer that. I don't. Yeah, that's where I'm at on that.
Well, even,
I hope that is an example of why I like fighting against it, but I wouldn't prefer somebody to learn it.
I think the only person I've ever seen use it super effectively was Glendor.
Glendor?
But he also posts out and leans way back.
Yeah.
So he has an extra 2 seconds to recover.
Yeah, especially if it's close, because then you're taking all your ability to cut it off early.
Next question from the chat. Do you change your grip during the shot?
Do I change my grip during a shot? So I use a 2-finger trigger for the most part. Depending on the shot I'm throwing, depends on which fingers I'm clenching. If it's an offside, I start off with my pinky, closing with my pinky. For an onside, it's usually my first 2 fingers. I do not slide. I have a basket tilt on all of my swords, and they all have a 2-finger trigger, so there's no sliding to get more area. There's no anything. In fact, I really like my swords to be very, almost encasing my hand so it doesn't move a whole lot, but not totally, because I want to be able to move my wrist. So I want it locked in on my hand. So there's not a whole lot of movement that I'm doing. There's not, other than which fingers I'm grabbing with to do the shot, there's not much grip change, I would say.
Next question from the chat. You use both opening shots and pump fakes to create openings on your opponent. What are the pros and cons of those methods, and when do you think they should be used?
Is this, Adelaide, is this the difference between throwing a full shot and throwing a pump fake?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So depending on how fast the person is whether I'll decide if I want to get into business with an opening shot. So if they're really fast or they have really long arms, it might be bad for me to try and actually throw a shot. So like, let's say I'm fighting Donegal, left-handed Duke. He's pretty fast. He knows what he's doing. If I just throw a shot and get in there, there's a very high chance that he blocks it, picks it up, comes in left-handed, and mashes my ribs. So a lot of our fights are going to be a lot of this. Just getting somebody to bite too hard in one direction for one of us to come in and take advantage of it. So if I'm fighting somebody with long arms or who is also very fast or has a really good footwork that can move in really quickly, it might not always be the best option for me to throw an opening shot, potentially open myself up and get stuck somewhere in this area, depending on whatever I'm throwing, if it's not a fully deadly shot. So let's say Matsu and I are fighting, and I know he can close distance really well. And I throw this offside shot to start my turnover, and he either takes that side step, or let's just say he closes 100% on me. So I'm here, and I get stuck here. I can't turn over or anything. I'm basically pinned. So if I know that he has the ability to close like that, or take different edges, or he can repost really well, it's all about understanding, okay, maybe I throw that and I saw it and I got out and I got alive and I went, okay, well, it's probably not smart for me to try and do that again. Maybe I'll hit him with a pump fake. But again, you can play around with this, and it's really safe to start with a pump fake too. If I'm fighting a guy, I don't know what's going to happen, I'll start off with a quick one, see what he does. Oh, he wants to close distance? Cool. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to pump fake him. I'm going to throw a jump wrap, or I'll close the distance and throw a wrap. Because he wants to close the distance, I'll meet him. I just saw what he did with a pump fake. Let's see if he does it again. I'll throw it, and I'm ready for it. I've got something lined up already. I saw when he closed in. No, you weren't. You were here.
No, I closed right.
So he was right here. So I'm like, cool. I can either pump fake to a flat snap or pump fake, try to catch him up, catch up to him and throw a wrap. So
That's where I want to close.
yeah. So it's again, all of these openings and visualization is a very fluid thing. So you will see me fight sometimes, especially in practice. I'll throw different stuff out there. I'll see what happens. I'll play around and experiment with what's happening so that when I do come across something again where I go, okay, I tap that. I've seen that before. Okay, I tap that, they open that up. I know I can throw this turnover there. Or I did a pump fake, he closes, cool. I know I can pump fake and come into a wrap shot. Or I know I can throw this offside head and he closes up real quick and comes out of it. So maybe I throw another one to follow it up, same place, just off speed. So I hate that a lot of my answers to the questions are, it depends, but it depends. Anybody else?
This has been really good stuff. Thank you guys for going through this and taking the time and clearing out your living room.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, we're a bit over an hour now. Feel free. You can send me questions. You can chat me up, Talon Larson on Facebook. I'm usually free to answer most questions if I'm not too busy. So don't hesitate. I can always try and answer a question for you. And if you think of something afterwards, feel free to shoot out and I'll see if I can get back to it. I like that. It depends ties to your main thesis of watch what happens. So thank you all for joining. Yeah, who knows?
Thank you, Xerxis.
As soon as the recording has rendered, Derek, I'll pass off the file to you, and you can post it in the various places that you want to post it to. I'm not sure where that's going to be, so I'll leave that in your capable hands.
All right. And hi, Brixie.
Hi, Brixie.
Hi, Brixie.
You're not showing.
I was like, come on.
She was
Oh,
typing in
she's
the chat. Yeah. So, Ross, did you have something you wanted to say there?
No, I just thank you again.
Yep.
Yeah, I believe Matsu said we can get the link over to him so he can post it on his channel.
All
Oh,
right.
great.
All right, everybody wave bye to Brixie.
Hi, baby. Say bye.
Yeah, videos.
Yeah.
Hi, Bug.
Virtual waves.
Wait, where is she?
Hi, Boogie. Yes. Hi, Boogie.
All right, bye, guys.
Thank you, everyone.